Good evening, I'm the Friendly Senpai, and today we are going to be talking about Unhack and Unhack 2, two visual novel/puzzle games created by Invert Mouse and released in 2015-2017 respectively. I actually have already reviewed some of his games in the past, and by some of his games, it was one game, and it was called Cursed Sight, and I absolutely adored it. So when he emailed me asking me to review two other games he has created, I was hella excited to get on board. The Unhack series tells the story of a cybersecurity expert that simply goes by the title Unhacker. Aided by his AI companions, our dear Unhacker works to defeat the 5K worm, which is an extremely volatile computer virus. In the sequel, he is forced to fight off ghosts of his past as he works to defeat the mysterious Program X and her army of AI clones. Like I said, I was entranced by Cursed Sight, so I will admit that I set the bar relatively high when it came to the Unhack series. And Unhack 1 simply fell through on expectations. It wasn't that the story was bad in theory, it simply failed on execution. A story about a hacker, or unhacker if you want to call him that, working with his AI to combat or fight against other AI in a battle of wits and outdoing each other in the realm of technology is fun. Especially when the narrative makes a lot of self-aware and relatable jokes. But with the first Unhack, the pacing was just kind of a disaster. It took me approximately 45 minutes to get through the entire game, so you were given no time to get to know any of these characters or find yourself emotionally connected to the story in time for a very big but very predictable plot twist and a rather emotional ending. Combine that with the inability to make any options regarding the story, and I was bored. Also, Weedy refers to the main character as Dear Unhacker, which was endearing at first, but she did it so much that I was so fucking tilted by the end. Unhack 2, thankfully, presented me with something that I was expecting from Invert Mouse. It did suffer the same kind of pacing issues I mentioned in Cursed Sight, but overall the story was enjoyable, and it was significantly more interesting than its predecessor. This is due to the facts that A, the story was longer, which provided the story with enough time to be fleshed out properly in a way where the player can actually connect with the characters and find themselves invested in the plot. I especially loved the concept of the cyberverse, which is where AI live. In a lot of other forms of media, an AI only exists on a specific machine. However, in Unhack, if you're an AI, you're powered by a single machine, but you exist and you can traverse an entire dimension of technology. This allows AI to interact with each other, which sometimes leads to them getting into physical confrontations, such as almost like how in one of the Halo books, Cortana got into a fight with a Covenant AI and literally tore him to shreds. It also featured a complete 180 in terms of the style taken with the narrative, because it used more of novel-style writing rather than narrative you would see in a visual novel. As a result, Unhack 2 was much more immersive than Unhack 1, so when it came time for the big twist regarding certain characters, I was just kind of like... What I really hated about the Unhacks, though, was the main character. Unhacker is very much a bland, boring, and exceedingly arrogant piece of shit, whose only real character trait is the fact that he likes to make costume mods for his AI. Most of the time in Unhack 2, he's just talking about how good he is at computers and how unrivaled his skills are. The fact that he's good is not the problem, it's how frequently it was brought up. Additionally, when it came to the really huge twist towards the end, he pretty much took it in stride. Like, he didn't even think twice about accepting the fact that he had the wool pulled over his eyes for like forever. And I don't want to say too much because the game is like, half of the game is just like one giant spoiler, so I kind of have to be careful how I word this. But when it came to the way he talked about things and discussed certain topics, he was very quick to change his tune, which bothered me a lot. Let's be real, the art style in Unhack 1 was not good. It looked like the kind of thing I would create in middle school. But when the developer emailed me about reviewing the game, he did acknowledge that he could have taken different paths when it came to the visual quality of the game, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Especially when, by Unhack 2, things took a much needed turn for the better. It looks very similar to the art used in Cursed Sight, which I ranted and raved about being gorgeous, so I definitely was not let down. The character art is nice and crisp, with plenty of detail to catch your eye, but not so much detail that it's distracting from the rest of the game's art. The hair, which is full of shines and changes in hue, which add dimension, had a flow and bounce to them that enhanced their personalities by looking neat and tidy, or cute and whimsical. And some of the sprites were even partially animated. That is so fucking cool! I love when visual novels do that. I wish I knew how to put that in my game. That shit is nuts. There is a constant dark undertone to the game, so I was thrilled to see that the vast majority of Unhack's 2 art matched it. It always used a cooler, subdued color palette for characters and locations. I especially loved the aesthetic overhaul done for the characters. The characters that made it into the second installment of the series were recreated in a way that still felt very new and fresh while embodying the key descriptors for their previous designs. I did get a total kick out of the artistic choice for Retrotech, which is the AI hospital created back in the 80s or 90s. I do think that the artist struggled with men though, because the only 2 men in the entire game had little to literally no facial features whatsoever, while the female AI were brimming with glitz and glam. Oh, and the CGs, by the way, were like super good, but I can only show you like 1 or 2 because the rest are chock full of spoilers. What took me by surprise was absolutely the puzzle concept for the game, which is something that is exceedingly rare in the visual novel genre. Both Unhack 1 and Unhack 2 feature a unique puzzle system as the main character performs his quote-unquote unhacking, which is usually him removing a virus from a computer or gaining access into someone's files. While the games utilize different systems, they both share several qualities. As you unhack, you have to avoid an enemy, either a security block or a worm, while using teleportation pads to jump from one part of the map to the other. There are dangerous red beams you need to deactivate and avoid, and turrets will blow you to pieces if they hit you. You can also use green attack pads to destroy bots and worms, which gives you an advantage as long as you can get to them. Additionally, at the start of the game, you can even choose your difficulty to determine how many lives you get per level. The biggest differences between the puzzles in Unhack 1 and Unhack 2 is how you navigate the map. Unhack 1 has an almost Pac-Man-like feel to it with virtually free roam options. Unhack 2 forces you to think a lot more before acting, because as you move between the squares, you will trigger everything else on the map to move. This can be a turret or one of the enemies on the map. While I found Unhack 1 to be rather simple in terms of gameplay, I struggled a lot with Unhack 2. Now, what I adored about Unhack 1 and what set it apart from other puzzle visual novel games such as Date Warp was the fact how your AI will continue to interact with you during the puzzle. I loved that because it added an extra layer of depth to both the gameplay and the character development, so it was sorely missed in Unhack 2. The voice acting was also something that I missed too. Unhack 1 was pretty much fully voice act, whereas Unhack 2 was silent, and that's probably because voice actors are super fucking expensive, so that's not something I can really blame the creator for. The only reason I bring it up is so you know. So, in general, on their own, I did not enjoy Unhack 1 very much, but I did enjoy Unhack 2. The first Unhack had too many flaws for me to see past, but Unhack 2 had sorted out most of its problems and presented an experience that was both enjoyable and memorable. However, together, they provide a pretty fun way to spend your afternoon. The Unhack series has lore that runs deep, a great soundtrack, excellent gameplay, and some damn cool characters. It wasn't a super complex, hit you in the feels kind of series, but I had fun, and I'm glad I was given the opportunity to play these. I do not suggest you just get Unhack 2 though if you're interested in the series, just because while you don't need to play Unhack 1 to understand Unhack 2, I feel like the majority of the emotional impact in Unhack 2 would be largely lost if you didn't play the first game. So I would suggest picking up the complete edition if you are interested, which is a bundle that it's like $17, I think. If you don't care about the extra stuff, you can also buy the game separately for $6 and $4. I will have a link to that in the description below. Otherwise, those are my thoughts on Unhack and Unhack 2. If you have played them, please let me know what your opinions are in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description. Happy unbirthday, and remember, the senpai loves you. Bye!